Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Stoy
Morning.
here, Productivity Mastery. And as you know, this is the show that's bringing you some of the most accomplished, most inspiring leaders from all across the globe. And we talk about productivity, we talk about entrepreneurship, and we share the honest stories of people, and hopefully through that, getting inspiration. And today you are in for a real treat. I gotta say, my guest today, despite going through having a challenging childhood, that didn't really seem to discourage her. Instead of that, it triggered her on the journey. And by the age of 20, she's already built three successful businesses, becoming a millionaire on the way. And unfortunately, in her 20s, she's losing her leg in a car accident. And many people would say, well, that's probably going to crash a person. Not in the case of my guest today. She actually um, the amount of things that she achieved is just incomprehensible, but I'm just going to mention a few of them. So she's been doing things in multiple areas, being an achiever in areas such as business, humanitarian effort, sports, to mention just a few. She was nominated for a Nobel Prize for Peace. She achieved five world records in, one of them actually is speed skiing. And I was watching the video. I gotta tell you guys, I got scared just by watching the videos. And she ended up becoming the fastest disabled woman in the history, achieving more than 166 kilometers per hour. Um, this lady here has been recognized by some of the most inspiring people out there, including Richard Branson, who says for her, she was one of the most remarkable people I have ever met. She's a force for positive impact, humanitarian work. She's an author, a speaker, a philanthrope, entrepreneur. And I'm so grateful for having a chance to welcome here Heather Mills. How are you this morning?
Wow. That was a good introduction. Yeah, no, very good. Usually too busy to think about what's gone on in the past, getting on with what's in the present and the future. So thanks for reminding me.
And let's maybe start there. Where are you at the moment? What are you juggling in between? I know you're busy. Like just before the podcast, you shared with me your schedule, which sounded quite intense. But I'm curious to hear, where are you at the moment? What are some of the projects that you're working on?
I think everybody knows that when you run your own business, it's your life, and so choose a business that you love, otherwise you have no life. And so my business is 5 a.m. to midnight, 7 days a week, and grabbing moments when I can with my family, um, sort of getting up early, getting all the emails out the way. Kids off to school, but now they're off to university, so it's more time. And yeah, it's just working. I mean, we've launched a vegan makeup range because a lot of people didn't know that there was pig in makeup. So when I was doing a speech in the Middle East, I saw these beautiful women with all the headscarves on and the eyeliner and mascara. And I thought, oh, I wonder which vegan makeup they use because halal, you can't use pig. And they didn't know. So we basically launched makeup into the Middle East and then called Be at One. So be at one with yourself, be at one with the planet, the animals. And it's a clean, kosher halal makeup. And then COVID hit just as we did it, and nobody wanted to wear makeup. So we had to sort of think outside the box. And eventually we launched into the Muller stores all over Germany, Austria, Slovenia, and Hungary. So I've been promoting that a lot, um, and putting some makeup on, whereas normally my head's in the factory with a headscarf and no makeup, so not normally very glamorous. And people didn't realize they were putting lipstick on and actually eating beetles because that's what was the base of most lipstick. Um, so raising awareness and just problem solving, people are always going to want to wear makeup. So let's get them to wear makeup that's not harming the animals, the planet, and the environment. So that's expanded, and people are out and about and moving past COVID, and hopefully we'll never go backwards again. This virus is going to be around forever, and there'll be more mutations of it. So everyone just has to accept that. and carry on with life. So there's that. And then we're finalizing the algae projects. You know, most people think omega-3 comes from fish, and it doesn't. It comes from the algae the fish eat. And I didn't understand why billions of fish were being killed to go into little omega-3 capsules, or farmed fish owners were asking could they buy our omega-3 to feed their fish, because there was no omega-3 in the farmed fish. And I just found that shocking. So we developed the V omega-3 capsule, which has the same level of EPA and DHA as fish, which is docosahexaenoic acid for brain function. And we developed that 15 years ago, and now the world's finally ready to move into the algae sector and out of the fish oil sector. So that's been growing rapidly, and every 2.5 tons we grow depletes CO2 by 1.5 tons. So that's helping the environment. And just basically working on problem solving and educating the meat, fish and dairy industry on if they're going to survive in their business and maintain an EBITDA, they need to have a piece of the vegan pie. And they're the ones with the power to feed all the people. You know, we were just a small family startup, so we needed to grow and educate them. So we replicated all of the vegan dairy brands around the world. They weren't interested in using our vegan option initially. Now, Norseland Applewood sell more smoky paprika slices vegan than they do their dairy ones. So it's, you know, because we've been driving awareness, and that drives the footfall into the supermarkets. After 30 years of doing it, it's finally caught on, because people are aware that they have to do something to help the planet. Even if they didn't care about the animals before, they realize that overproduction of animals is the number one reason why the planet's being destroyed. So yeah, just lots of awareness, educating, and then all the people that I've worked with over the years are going on to educate everyone else.
Impressive, and impressive to see your discipline and work ethic. Even despite all this success, all these years, you keep on being full there, getting your hands dirty. And I wonder, we had this conversation with you right after 15 Seconds Festival. We met at the plane, ended up accidentally or not sitting next to each other. And you shared with me many things from your story. And I'm actually curious to hear, and I'm sure the audience is as well, the early beginnings, your, if we can go back in time to your childhood and teenage years, and maybe give us a bit of a context of how was it for you, and do you find this strive for achievement, getting things done, helping others, to be somehow related to the experiences that you had to go through in your early years?
I think your experiences really mark you in your life, but I think you are who you are when you're born, because you get people that have terrible childhoods and turn out to be great people, and other people have lovely childhoods and turn out to be terrible people, and vice versa. So you can get people with the same childhood, and one person in there is great and the other person is a complete disaster. So that's down to genetics and who you are, I believe. But then things that happen to you in your life mark you. So yes, my mum left when I was 9. My dad went to prison when I was 12. He thought it was a reincarnation of Richard Wagner. He was entrepreneurial. My mother spoke 11 languages. They were all very, very smart people, but very dysfunctional and not loving or caring. It was all about them the whole time. So I was left to look after my brother and sister, and I had to learn how to multitask from a very young age. So get 3 uniforms ready, you know, get my dad's suit ready, get the breakfast ready. We had no money, so I had to run to school 5 miles. I used to think, oh, I'd love to be on that bus, but actually it made me a super athlete as a kid. And then I would fall asleep in class. And in those days, you used to get hit with a stick. And the teachers never asked, why is she falling asleep? And if they had, I would have said, because I've been up all night working with my dad, organizing his Ring of the Nibelung Wagner audiovisual presentation that he wanted to put on around the world. So the work ethic, I would say, came from learning not to need so much sleep. So 4 hours a night is what I've lived off my entire life. And people say it's not enough, but everybody's different what they need. And once I slept 8 hours and I felt terrible. My eyes were puffy, and I felt groggy all day. So, the doctors all say you have to sleep 8 hours, and if that works for you, then great. But I think that's how I've managed to fit so much in, because I'm awake more than I am asleep. And I think I'll just sleep when I'm dead. I'll have plenty time then. So yeah, crazy childhood. And then started my first business when my dad went to prison. My mum appeared. We hadn't seen her for 4 years. And I went to London with her because we were living in Newcastle with my dad. She'd married or lived with a West End theatre actor who didn't like children. So I left home when I was 14, went to live on a travelling fair. The guy died from a drugs overdose, which put me off ever doing drugs. So even though that was horrible for him, it was good for me because I've never done drugs in my life. And didn't drink until I was 29. Then my ex-husband gave me a nice glass of red wine, and I thought, well, maybe I'll have a drink. But I was always into athletics and always into, doing extreme sports, racing cars, just all sorts of things, because I had no fear, and I still have no fear of life. When you're going to go, you're going to go. I worked in the war in the former Yugoslavia on the front line, didn't lose my leg there. Came back to England, crossed the street, police motorcycle, chopped it off, crushed my pelvis, punctured my lung. That was meant to be. I wouldn't have then gone on with my team to create the largest landmine clearing charity and prosthetic assistance in the world if I hadn't lost my leg, but I would have done something else. So
What
it's
was it
like,
like?
yeah.
What was it like? I mean, as I recall, you've been modeling, you've been doing all these things. How did you feel in this, when the accident happened and you start realizing, and how did you cope with this whole period?
Well, I mean, my mother lost her leg at the same age as me, and they reattached it bizarrely when she was 25, and then she died when she was 47 because of bad circulation. So I'd never seen an amputee, when I was younger, but I had when I went to work in India when I was 17, 18. I saw a lot of amputees. It was pretty horrific. They were amputating kids to have a better begging system. It was really shocking. But I just thought, okay, I've lost my leg. I'm still alive. I'd seen lots of people blown up in the war in the former Yugoslavia. And I knew what to do, to start creating and developing prosthetics and advancing them, because of what I'd seen working in different war zones before I lost my leg. So I don't know, I just thought, okay, it's a leg, let's make a prosthetic and let's just heal. The worst thing was my pelvis because it was completely crushed. So I had to lie in hospital for 5 months on my back. And it's quite funny because I had a security guard for a while, many years ago, and he's used to me being up before him. So I think I hadn't slept for 3 nights for some work reasons, and I actually slept 6 hours that one time, and he thought something was wrong, so he came in, and when I sleep like this because I was on my back for 5 months in hospital and you can't move. So I always just sleep on my back and I literally am silent. So he kept poking me, thinking that I was dead or something because I was used to just being still in the hospital the whole time. So, so yeah, I just, thought, let's just get on with it. I'm not dead. I haven't been blown up in a war zone. I haven't lost members of my family as so many people had. So I just always try and not focus on myself. I think people focus so much on themselves that they can go into like a spiral. Whereas if you actually, when something horrible happens to you, the best way of healing is to immediately do something for somebody else in that situation and try and find problem solving, because it's not only cathartic, it's also inspiring being around other people that you can work with and help and make a difference. So I think people spend too much time thinking instead of doing. Um, it's important to reflect, which I'm starting to do now. I'm 54. I'm starting to. I've moved house and I've found boxes I haven't opened for 20 years. And I thought, oh my God, I forgot I did that. And oh, I forgot all about that. So that's really nice to do. And I'm enjoying that, taking a few moments to reflect. But I think if you just get on with doing and enjoying and grabbing moments, I'm an all in or all out person. So if I do it properly and I do it till it happens. And when I'm with my family, my phones are off. No one can contact me, no matter what's going on. There will always be problems in business. There will always be things to fix. They will never run smoothly for more than 24 hours. So when it happens and you've got something to celebrate it, enjoy it, embed it in your head, because there will be another problem. There will be another, oh God, why has this happened? But that's happening to everybody. So, when people feel sorry for themselves and feel like they're singled out, trust me, there's another 50 people down your street behind you going through far worse. So I don't sit and focus on, oh, poor me, whoa, why is this happening to me? I just think, okay, why has this happened? And because so many mad things have happened to me for a reason, because I am a problem solver, I now know why they're happening to me. So when I lost my leg, I'd already been working in the war in the former Yugoslavia, but they had a prosthetic problem. So when I saw that people had legs made and then just discarded them, I thought, well, why don't we get the prisoners to dismantle them all, put them into boxes and recycle them all? They cost the taxpayer a fortune, so let's get them to work. So I got all the prisons around the country dismantling secondhand limbs and then shipping them abroad to countries that couldn't afford them. And that was a quick, easy solution. And of course, we needed the prosthetists to do it. So I got different prosthetists to travel around in a truck in the former Yugoslavia and get to war zone areas that they couldn't get to, a bit like a library truck. And then I got people to donate their time for 2 weeks at a time out of their normal business of prosthetics. And then we created this recycling system for about 4 years and fitted up 27,000 people. And to date, we've helped over 400,000 amputees and cleared about 21 million square meters of minefield land. And that was thriving until Rupert Murdoch and his team decided to, destroy most of our charity work. So then I spent 17 years investigating them and putting some of their journalists in prison because they wrote so much rubbish about me. They presumed I was the stupid blonde that they wrote about. So I thought, okay, let's investigate them. Let's create an investigation into phone hacking and let's take them down. So that's what we did. But of course, because I decided to go after a very powerful group of people, I had to pay the price in the media. But we won in the end. It took 17 years. So maybe all that crap that was written about me happened to me so that I could fight back with some like-minded people and help the people without a voice whose lives they'd destroyed. And make the public aware, you buy that shit, you read it, and you create the demand. So, just think about what you're buying, whether it's a newspaper or whether it's some cheap clothing where children are underground sewing beads, so that you can get a cheap product. I just try and get people to think a little bit more and then see where they can go with solutions for that problem.
Do you find that we are a little bit spoiled as society? With you're talking about your experiences as a kid, your experiences being in a war zone, and in many ways, perhaps that contributed to you accepting the circumstances, the event that happened to you, and everything. Do you feel like we are a society a little bit like complaining about the my internet is too slow today, I spilled my
Yeah,
coffee on me, those kind of things? Like, do you think we need to change your perspective a little bit?
yeah. I mean, I'm someone that just leaves a room if I hear people complaining about nothing. And they go, "Where are you going?" I said, "I just don't want to be around this crap you're talking. It's like a waste of energy. Why aren't we talking about problem solving?" When people say to me, "The problem is," I'm like, "Bye." And I'm said, what you need to be saying is, well, the solution that we think is, and this and this. And so you have to think about what you're saying, because when you're constantly complaining, or when you're constantly looking at where the issues are and the problems are without trying to come up with a solution and just complaining, then, you're just wasting your life and wasting your time. And unfortunately, a lot of parents these days are over busy and over consumed. So, and not tough enough on their kids. It's like, there's no way my parents would allow me to sort of sit there complaining or saying the word "I'm bored." They'd be like, "You're bored? Go and cook dinner, go and wash the dishes, go and mow the lawn." Now everyone's on a computer, literally 24/7, on social media, which is just so much chat and so little doing. Social media is important if you're going to actually utilize it to bring about change or inspire yourself, or help somebody do something. But if all you're going to do is read content, make stupid comments, and achieve nothing, then you have to look at your life and think, what am I doing? I'm just wanting to be part of a group of complaining people. So it's really, really important to think, what do I want from my life with these finite amount of seconds I've got left? Because, I was a banana skin away from death 4 times. So you don't know when you're going to go. You don't know when someone you love is going to go. And you need to get outside your own head and think about the bigger things going on in the world without them depressing you. When the Ukraine situation happened, I just thought, okay, two governments that are, gonna fight, but America and England, we are the worst. We go into countries, we rape them of everything they have, gas, oil, water, and then we leave them the second we've took everything, and we pretend we're helping, but we're not. We are literally the worst. And so when I saw the Ukraine situation happen, I thought that, again, the civilians are the ones that are going to suffer in all wars, not the government. So we created, immediately, a can, of nutritionally perfect, ingredients, high vegan protein chunks and cheesy beans at V-Bites. And then we just sent over thousands and thousands of tins, so you can eat it out the can. So it got ticked off, as something that was allowed to go. So, it's about thinking, what do you do? What are your qualities? And what difference can you make to others and not just yourself? Because all the billionaires I know in the world are pretty miserable unless they're making a difference. Um, you know, it's just really, really important, to make a difference and do what you can. And it's also selfish because you feel great. I mean, when you literally see thousands and thousands of lives turned around because you had an idea and created a solution and it worked, it's fantastic. It becomes your drug to make as much difference as you can.
Absolutely. And one thing that probably many people now listening to the podcast and following your journey are wondering is, Heather, you're doing so many things. And in order to achieve such level of success in the areas that you're focused on, it's also about inspiring others to join the cause and getting influential people to also buy into whatever it is that you want to create. So I wonder if you have any advice, any tips for our listeners in terms of how do we inspire others to join your team, to join your cause? Is that something that comes natural to you, or is there something that you can provide as a practical advice for everyone?
I think I learned, from a young age, that if you want to make massive changes, you have to make sure that the people that can influence them get all the credit. You don't want to, be thinking, oh, I need to be the person that is out there. So, we've changed lots of laws. We've there were a lot of people in, there are a lot of people in all governments, but in the UK government, there are a lot of people that do nothing except talk and argue in Parliament like schoolboys. And I say boys because unfortunately it's generally the men that just argue instead of getting on with it. And so we created and analysed solution-based things. So the prosthetic system didn't work. So we created a prescription prosthetic system to create competition between, the people who were making the limbs in the hospitals. And this improved the prosthetics. This improved where the budgets went. But you have to give it to somebody who's like a lord, who just sits there falling asleep most of the time in Parliament. So you have to like come up with the idea and then give them the solution and allow them to have the credit. And then you change things. When we changed for the first dog and cat fur ban, animal law that passed with a full majority through Brussels when we were part of Europe, lots of people had tried for 10 years, but they couldn't make it happen. So you have to think outside the box. And that's the biggest weakness in most companies and in most sort of charity areas. So let's say one charity had shown the video of dogs and cats being skinned alive and their products being sent over to Europe and pretending it was fake fur and it wasn't. Then they were shouting about it. But you have to think, okay, the fur industry are going to be absolutely against you. How can you get the fur industry on your side to pass a law through Parliament? So they don't want consumer duping. They don't want people thinking it's fox, mink or sable, which is just as horrific in my opinion, but in the public's opinion, not so much. So let's get them on our side. So we created a law change through consumer duping, not through the fact that skinning dogs and cats alive is the most disgusting, horrible thing ever. We managed to change the law by proving it was consumer duping and by getting the furriers on board because it wasn't good for their industry either. And then getting 250,000 signatories to draw attention. Because if you imagine Parliament have so many issues to deal with, it's whoever's creating the most noise in the media and publicly that they will go to first. So you might think your issue is the most important, but there are thousands of issues they have to deal with. So you have to make it stand out and be important and be able to give them the credit that they need, for the schoolboys that they still are. So, you have to do it like that. And that's what makes it work. And then when you do that and you prove that you have a history, as we do, of 30 years in the environmental, animal and health sector, then you have a story where people then believe what you're saying because you've lived it for 30 years. And then you get a following of people who want to also do the same thing. So making a difference, you need a team. It's always good to take people who are willing to learn and train them up. It's much harder to take somebody on who's set in their ways because they always do things in a certain way. So I would say getting somebody when they're straight out of university and getting your head into their head and also their fresh opinions is really good. And then you get the loyalty of people that have worked with us for 15, 30 years who have all that experience. So when people say to me, oh, I'm going to start my own business, I said, well, have you worked in that business for someone else? Have you understood and learned all about it? Because running a business is the hardest thing ever, second to a charity. And so many people think, oh, I can do this. We had a couple of people in our factory who said, well, it's all right for you. You're a millionaire and, we're in the factory all day. And I said, okay, so I'll come in the factory for a day, and stood on line for 12 hours and they couldn't keep up or last. And then I said, now you come with me and live my life for a week, but just ghost me. And they lasted 3 days and went back to the factory and said, no, actually, I don't want to wake up at 4 and go to bed at midnight. And I don't want to multitask 20,000 things a day. And it's too much pressure. So, but you need all minds to create a business, because, you know, people don't want to stand in front of a production line the whole time. So, you know, we all need to work as a team, and that's what's really important. And people need to be appreciated for the role that they play in that. It's not just one person that creates big movements.
And you partly already answered my next question, but I still want to dig deeper because recently I read a study which found that people stay in the largest companies in the world with the biggest resources on average between 1 and 2 years. That's the kind of the retention. And since you mentioned we have people staying for 15, 30 years in the company, I wonder, if you have to reflect now, what keeps them with you? What are the kind of things that we can do as leaders to make our people comfortable to stay with us for a longer period, as you mentioned?
You need to connect. You have to wipe out the them and us scenario that happens in corporate, and you need to group them and get with them and appreciate them and understand what's going on. Obviously, once you end up with, you know, thousands and thousands of staff, that's really difficult to know all your staff. But it doesn't mean that you can't set up 5 or 6 events during the year where you connect with them. You know, I know who their families are and their granddaughters, and you know, it also adds a huge responsibility, because if anything goes into a difficult situation like Brexit or COVID, you know, their jobs are dependent on it. So one example with our company was we scaled massively with V-Bites into all these factories to save the jobs, because one of the weakest areas of the food industry was they didn't predict how big plant-based would become. Number one, they didn't plan scale on 100% plant-based facilities. I knew they wouldn't, so I bought all the factories that they'd ran away from in Brexit. And but that's huge overheads. And then suddenly COVID happened, and those factories weren't producing. There were no exhibitions, there were no concerts, there were no restaurants open. So I had to make a decision. Am I going to lay everything on the line to keep these alive for when COVID passes? And other people said, you're mad, you're completely crazy. But I said, no, these people have worked with me for years. And I want to make sure they've got jobs to go back to and that they're covered. So they know what I've put on the line and that I've risked everything and that I don't take money out of my business. I make my money from property business. So I just keep reinvesting to grow those businesses, because it's about the animals, the planet, and the environment. So I think that's what, when your staff see that you're willing to go right to the edge to keep them going, then you create loyalty. When you're a really big corporate and you're a slow ferry moving ship, you need to have the right kind of management that connect all the way down the line, to the people on the ground, the real workers. It's a bit like having an army. You know, you've got your soldiers, you've got your colonels, you've got your generals. They're just titles, but each person has a role to play that's as equally important as the next. Because if our guys are not on the production line, there's no food, the management above them have got no job. If the sales team don't create the sales, the production's got no job. So unless you're joining the dots and connecting with each other in all businesses and appreciating that you're not the busiest person at the table with the most stress, with the most problems, you're just one of the people at the table, that has just as many problems as everyone else. But when you're the owner, you're kind of like the fairy on the top of the Christmas tree. They look at you in a certain way, but actually you're all alone and there is no one to turn left or right to. It's all on your head. So you have to make sure you've got strong shoulders, and also that you haven't got a wobbly tree below you. You know, you have to have like a solid base and a solid foundation and a solid trunk to make sure that the whole thing doesn't topple down.
And
So that's
that's
important.
a topic I want to dig even deeper into, because I feel like we as a society are painting this picture that, oh my god, it's so great to be an entrepreneur, to be a business person. I'm gonna post on Instagram, go to conferences, and it's all sunshine and roses. We actually wrote a book called Perform: The Unsexy Truth About Startup Success. And I interviewed many successful entrepreneurs in there, and um, talking to each and every one of them is like, this is not fun. This is not sexy at all. Like, there's so much. Of course, there's the good part of it. I mean, we don't deny it, but there's just so much. I mean, it's all on your shoulders.
Mm.
Sometimes you're feeling lonely. Sometimes you're like, I have no idea what to do. I'm exhausted. I'm overwhelmed. I need to pay salaries, and I don't know how. So I wonder if you can maybe talk a little bit about the real story. What is it? What has it been for you being an entrepreneur? And did you have any near death experiences with the businesses that you've been building?
Yeah, I mean, I've had lots of situations where things haven't worked, and I've had to, dig into my pocket all the time to assist some of the startups that I've invested in who've worked really hard, but they had bad luck with Brexit, with COVID. Um, there's always going to be situations where it's going to be right to the edge of the cliff. So you have to ask yourself, can I take extreme stress? Am I an entrepreneur and somebody that literally can handle all levels of stress? Because if you're someone that gets stressed easily, never, ever, ever, ever start your own business, because you'll die from a heart attack. Number one. Are you a team player? Then, look at the benefits of not running your own business. Let's look at both sides. So the benefits are, you go to work, you're 9 to 5, um, mainly, and you can switch off, be with your family, watch your Netflix series, make your plans for the weekend and not have them interrupted. Unless you're at a top management position, then you have to be a lot more available. The downside is, you might want to go off and buy a luxury yacht one day. It's never going to happen. The downside of a luxury yacht, which I don't have, is it's a lot of maintenance. Everyone gets to enjoy it more than you. It's like when you get a bigger and better house, there's more maintenance. There's a problem with that, there's a problem with that. People come round and enjoy it, but you actually get very little enjoyment from it because you're always fixing it or doing this. So what I've learned is, when you're young, you have all these aspirations and achievements that you want to achieve, in my case in charity and in business. And then you get there and you reflect, and you've paid a huge price to get there. And then you say, actually, I want to downsize, and I want a smaller house, and I actually want, you know, to do less and to have more quality time, and so and so and so. Because you're working so much all the time, you rarely get to enjoy those things until you decide to retire. And then letting go is really, really difficult and really important, because you've spent your whole life creating your baby. And then, are you going to sell it? Are you going to put that into the hands of someone that doesn't care as much? There's lots and lots of things to consider. So just remain as much as possible emotionally detached from what you're doing, and you end up having to, I suppose it's like doctors with surgery. They must throw up, and actually, you know dealing with people dying must be horrific. But in the end, they have to learn to deal with it, and they have to detach themselves. And it's a bit like your business. If you're going to be successful and you're going to survive, you have to put it in a box. You have to fix your hours when you're on it, and you have to close the lid and switch off. Otherwise, your adrenal glands are going to blow up. You're going to end up with pancreatic cancer. Something awful is going to happen. So it sounds extreme, but anyone that's at the top of the chain and has worked their backside off for their whole life will get what I'm saying. You really need to have a work-life balance. And it might mean that your company's not going to be $1 billion company, it's going to be $1 million company. But really, how much money do you need? If you're constantly, I had a boyfriend when I was who, when who I met and had all these dreams, and I loaned him his first lump sum to start his first business. And he said, when I'm a millionaire, I'm going to retire, because my favorite time was in Bali. So he got to a millionaire, and then he said, when I get to 6 million, then I'll retire. And now he's a 1.2 billionaire, and he's still not retiring. He still doesn't feel he's achieved enough, and he's still not happy. That's when you have to look inside and say, this is not about more business. This is about not liking yourself and wanting to spend time with yourself. So you have to really sit and think about, why am I starting this business? What's the reason behind it? If you're going to start a business, do something you love. Be creative and do something you love. If you're going to go into food, use third-party manufacturers, because manufacturing is 1 billion times harder than you can ever imagine. And if you're going to go into, other areas, go and work for a company that works in that similar area. Learn from all their mistakes before you throw your money into something that 60% of the time will fail. Unfortunately, that's the averages on startups. It's a 60% failure. So do your research and really understand what you're doing, and speak to loads of people that are much older than you and been in the business. All of us, when we're kids, never listen to our parents, never listen to the teachers. And now in reflection, you go, yeah, actually, they were right a lot of the time.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I love my afternoon nap now, but when I was in kindergarten, you gotta see me. I was the worst, like crying and just not not letting anybody sleep. And now it's like I want to have a nap in the afternoon, but I have all these three meetings, and so
Yeah.
definitely. I'm curious to hear. Do you have any I would say hacks in terms of let's say you overwhelmed, you're under extreme stress. Do you have any routines, rituals, something that you do in
Yeah.
order to get out of this stress
I
situation?
would say, everybody should just Google how to breathe, because we forget to breathe. We sit and we create acid reflux, because we eat too quickly. We don't chew enough. You need to literally just switch your phone off, switch your computer off, just for 15 minutes when you're eating, and think about letting your stomach out and chewing the food properly and digesting it properly, because 90% of our serotonin comes from our stomach. If we don't digest correctly, then we will have indigestion, we will become more short-tempered, we will make wrong decisions because we're feeling, aggressive or not happy. So breathing is really, really important. 60%, actually more, 70% of people have little hiatus hernias that they don't know about, which grow more and more and more through the intestines. And as they grow, they pull the stomach up into the diaphragm, and that affects your breathing. And so you've got to remain open all the time. So if you can just do 5 or 10 minutes of breathing, really opening up the chest and breathing through the stomach, and sort of doing the core, you get so much stress out, and you also create, all the peristaltic movement through your colon that calms your head. Your digestion is your brain. If your digestion doesn't work, your brain is not functioning correctly, your hormones are off balance, and that all comes from breathing and hydration. But we forget to breathe. We're so busy, and then we go and we breathe shallow. So if you can spend time really focusing on your breathing, and just before you're about to write that angry text or email to some idiot that's let you down again in your head, take a deep breath, or even write it up and put it in your draft box, because you can say things out of an immediate reaction. And I'm the worst for it, because when you're real, you just immediately come back with something. But I learned from an ex-partner of mine who was very manipulative and very clever, and never put anything in writing, and always thought everything through. And I thought, I'm too emotional and reactive, and I need to just take a deep breath and actually think past this. What would be the repercussions of this decision, or this statement that I've made? I had to learn the hard way, because I just speak the truth. and not everybody wants to hear the truth. So take a deep breath and learn how to breathe properly, and pause before you react, because especially if you've got digestive problems, which I find more and more people are, and it's not something that's spoken about. You've got to take hydrochloric acid, digestive enzymes. Once you're over 50, you don't digest like you used to, and it will massively help keep you in a calmer state so that you can deal with the stress around you so much more. When your stomach's a mess, your brain is a mess.
This is so helpful, so useful, and unfortunately, still majority of schools are not teaching us these life skills, the things that actually matter in life. And another thing that I'm really passionate about with my work, and generally, I think everybody needs to have at least the basic knowledge around. And I would be happy to hear how you deal with that. Is the time management? How do
Yeah,
you how
the
do you
time
manage your time?
I do I realize more and more that I'm like a clock. And I literally, if I say I'm going to be there at this time, I'll be there at this time. If I say this is going to, I map everything out. So I basically say, okay, this is things that need to be achieved. These are the people we have to connect with to achieve it. These are the deadlines. Where's the accountability? And everybody's connected. And I say, if one of you does not, come in and drop in at that point, then the whole thing collapses. So sometimes I set up situations knowing that they're not going to be prepared, just so they learn how to, time manage themselves. I also blame parents a lot because they don't create a time management system with their kids. They allow them to just lie in bed all morning and then, say, oh, I'm going to do such and such, and not think things through. I think it's important to be a child. I think it's important to enjoy and have fun and laughter. But as a parent, your whole point of being a parent is to bring your child up to be independent. It is not to bring your child up to leave home and not know how to cook, not know how to mow the lawn, blow a tire up, fix some electrical thing. That is not parenting. That's just allowing someone to grow up on social media, leave home, and all your focus is that they have a degree, but they've got no common sense. And that's what I'm finding now. The pressure on youngsters is always, you've got to get a degree, but you ask them to cook a meal or go and fix something on the factory floor, or they haven't got a clue. It's like unbelievable. My partner that I've been with for 4 years is well, he's not now, but he was absolutely useless. And I said to his mum, he can't cook. He can't fix the door. He can't. I'm the one that's doing the plumbing and the plastering and the electricals. I said, what is going on in the world? But he's so super smart. So what I realized was, okay, he's really good at reading contracts. So I said, okay, you've got to read these 3 contracts while I cook dinner. Now that's time management. If I'm going to sit cooking dinner and taking time out, you're going to read those contracts and shout out the pointers for me. So it's about finding out what you're good at, help train up people to have better time management skills so that they can multitask and fit a lot more in. Because people say, apart from the fact I don't sleep a lot, yes, I've got more hours to do things, but people say, yeah, but how have you done so much? And it is time management. It literally is. Set your schedule week by week, and also give yourself a lot more time between meetings than you think, because that has a domino effect. I used to do back-to-back meetings, and especially with Zoom and everything, it always runs 5 or 10, 15 minutes over, and then you're late for the next one and the next one. So always leave those gaps in between. Emails, I talk to the phone on the bike in the gym in the morning. So I get up and have breakfast, go to the gym, and I have my computer and I say, talk the emails to me, and the computer talks to them. And I look like the nutter in the gym because I'm on the bike, and I just talk them back. 50, 100, 200 emails done on the hour on the bike. And that means I haven't sat on an hour on a bike just listening to some music. I've utilized all that time. Everyone has their answers before they've even got up for work. And same when I'm in the car, when people say, oh, I've got a 3-hour drive. I'm like, so why wouldn't you maximize that time? You can just have your emails talking to you. You can be on a conference call with your headphones. You know, that's otherwise that's 2-3 hours lost. Yes, you should concentrate and be safe when you're driving, but that's pretty easy unless you're a rubbish driver. You just have an earpiece in and you plan all your calls around that. So people waste a lot of time, you know. I can't tell you how many Zoom calls I've been on audio and you know, utilize the bathroom or gone to mute, or that's what busy is. You know, when people say I need to go and do X, Y, and Z, I'm like, and doesn't mean you can't do 4 or 5 other things at the same time. And then when you have time off, you're 100% off. So I say to my team, right, I've hit the wall, because I'm very aware. It's about being aware of your health and who you are. And I go, right, I've hit the wall now. You've got a week to ask me every question you want to ask me. And then I'm disappearing for a month. And once every 2 years, I just do that. And I say, right, I'm off, because I'm full on and full off. I don't believe that when people go on holiday, they should be on their phones. If you're taking a holiday, take a proper holiday or don't bother. So all or nothing is my motto.
And all or nothing is actually, in my final question, is connected to you managed to achieve 5 world records. You've won multiple medals in the realm of skiing, which is impressive, having in mind everything that happened to you. But I wonder, was it more the physical preparation or the mental preparation? How did you prepare to do something that has never been done before? What helped you to achieve all these records?
I would say it was the physical preparation and designing a proper skiing leg. The mental preparation had already come from going through all the crazy things I'd gone through in life. You know, why wasn't I blown up in a war zone? I'd been in lots of them. I get, you know, my leg chopped off in England just crossing a street. A police motorcycle chops it off. So when people said, "Oh my God, you're going to do extreme ski racing off the side of cliffs," I was like, and you know, if when I'm going to die, I'm going to die. You know, your life is mapped out. That's it. So do everything that you dream of and love, because when it's over, and you don't know when that's going to happen. So I'd say it was physically, and it was accidental. And the only reason I did it was to solve a problem, which is the reason behind why I do all the crazy things I do. And the problem was people thought vegans didn't get enough protein. So 15 years ago, I said, okay, they're just not listening that we are fit and healthy and get plenty protein, and protein doesn't just come from animals. So let's do something extreme. And then, boom, the Icelandic volcano went off. I got stuck in Austria on, you know, a meeting. And I said, okay, my girlfriend said, let's go skiing. We hadn't for 20 years or something. And we went and I didn't know how to turn because you didn't have any legs that you could turn with. I hadn't developed a ski leg at that time. I developed running legs and all the stuff you see on the Paralympics, but I hadn't for skiing. And I got told off in the hotel by the Austrian ski team. And I didn't know I'd been going through their speed gun because I only knew how to go straight. And he said, "You're going too fast." And I said, "Well, I don't know how to turn." And he said, "Well, why not?" And I said, "I have one leg." And he said, "You're crazy. You know, you were doing like 125 or something." And I said, "Wow, is that fast?" Because it didn't feel fast. And he said, "Yeah." He said, "Have you thought of ski racing?" And I said, "Well, I'm a bit old because I was 42." And he said, "No, I really think you should go and do the Paralympics." He said, you've got no fear." And so I went off, developed a leg, came back. It kept falling off. It was like flying out of my, because when you go fast, it didn't have like proper attachments. And people would come up and think it was my leg down there and nearly have a heart attack. I go, no, 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 it's a prosthetic. And then pop it back on, broke bones, broke rotator cuffs, broke everything, fix them again. One time I was in the gym with a broken arm and a broken leg, and they said, "You can't work out." And I said, "Yeah, I've still got one leg and one arm." So I just sit on the bike, pedal, balance with the good arm, and pedal with one leg, you know, so there's no excuse. And then I asked to go on the British team, and they laughed at me and said, "Well, you're 42. I don't think that's a good idea." So they wouldn't have me on the team. So I got a wild card, went off to New Zealand, trained like mad with the Austrian team, who was supportive, but the British team wouldn't have me. And won a silver medal in slalom in New Zealand at Coronet Peak. And to the horror of the head of the British team, they were like, what the hell is Heather Mills doing here? She's an old woman. And I said, can I be on the team now? And they said, no, not sure. And then eventually I got on the team, and then I won 4 gold medals in Super G and downhill, developed all the prosthetics. And I thought, what can I do after that? And I thought, let's do the world record in speed skiing. And then that will plant the fact that vegans can be great athletes, especially old ones. So when I was 47, I did the world speed skiing record, which nobody's still beaten. And now I'm 54. So if anyone beats it, please go ahead, because then I'll just go back and do it again.
I love it. I love it. Honestly, I watched the video and I was like, I'm getting scared and just like adrenaline just by watching the video. It was like what, 166.8?
166. We actually did 230, but because we didn't have a no tear there, because it's different depending on the conditions, but it was in bars in France. So we did 166, but it was all against able-bodied guys, which was quite funny. There weren't any women there at all. It was just all 2-legged men. And they were horrified to see this one-legged chick go to the top of the mountain and dive off it. So, but you can't tell how fast something is by watching it in skiing because it's so white. So it's about sound, and nobody had put sound on their body because they're all paranoid it might slow them down if they put microphones on, whereas I didn't care. So I strapped some to the metal leg and all over, and then you can hear that high pitch, really high pitch when you pass 150, and so then you get a bit more feeling of the speed. But the maddest thing was the ski jumping, because nobody had done a ski jump with a prosthetic leg, and again that was quite funny because the prosthetic foot broke on one of the jumps, and I had to, on a practice jump, and then I had to do TV jump the next day, and I was like, oh God, I'm in Austria and we don't have a spare foot. And then I Googled who else skis with a prosthetic leg, and I found this guy in the mountains in Austria that was a ski coach, but his foot was 3 times bigger than mine. And but I said, well, it doesn't matter because it's still a prosthetic foot. So when I went in the air, I'm like this, going on the side because my legs too out of kilt the other side, with this massive foot on the bottom of it. And I'd had a broken arm as well. And when you sit down on a ski jump, you have to go forward, and the ski goes up like that, and then the other skis sort of like that. So I had to get the guys to hold my shoulder while I hang off and then go 3, 2, 1, let go of me. And then they'd let go and we go flying up. But it was so much fun. I just, sport is my de-stressor. When you talk about what do you do apart from breathing, I just do loads of sport wherever possible. And yeah, and it started because I wanted to show people you can be vegan and in your 50s and still be really sporty. You still got the muscles. So finally people are realizing that. It was the meat and dairy industry that were trying to tell people you could only survive from protein from those items, and now people are educating themselves and feeling better. You are what you eat. That's what everybody's always said, but you're more importantly what you digest. So I can't eat cauliflower because I go from a 6-pack to 6-month pregnant the second I eat cauliflower. So it's really important that you know what you're going to eat, and that makes you feel happy.
Heather, you're an impressive woman. Thank you so much for this episode. Thank you for sharing all these things. I'm sure we'll get a lot of email after this episode with people sharing their experiences and what they learned. And if I have to rename the episode, it's probably gonna be called No Excuses. But for those people who would like to get in touch, maybe invite you to speak at a conference or check out some of the brands that you are part of, can you very briefly give us an overview about how can people get in touch with you and what are some of the main products and brands you're currently focused on?
I mean, if they look at vbites.com for the foods, Be It One, all the social media stuff the team do, I'm really rubbish at that. They say, can we have a picture? I haven't got a clue how to do any of that stuff. I'm too busy on other things. But I think it's Heather Mills Official is the Instagram and Facebook and all that kind of stuff. I've had a lot of people make up other accounts. There's a lot of fraud stuff going on, but Heather Mills Official is our account, and they can see all the stuff that we do there if they're interested. And the heathermills.org website has the entire history of what we do on there. So, but thanks for having me. I've really enjoyed chatting with you.
Thank you so much, Heather. Thanks everybody for listening. Episode 118, meaning there's 117 more episodes you can find on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and any other platform. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to share it with a friend. And no excuses, guys. You heard Heather. No excuses. Go and do whatever makes you happy. And see you again at the next episode of Productivity Mastery.